We're following the latest after 3 people have been charged in the Robert Mueller special investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort and Manafort's former business associate Rick Gates pleaded not guilty to multiple charges, including conspiracy against the United States, conspiracy to launder money, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent. Earlier, I spoke with former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti. Which of these 12 charges do you think is most significant and tells a story that surprised you?
There's no question that the surprise for me was the very wide-ranging conspiracy against the United States charge. That is a fairly common charge in a tax case. It's a charge that I've made myself when I was a federal prosecutor, but it suggests that Mueller has wide-ranging evidence. He was able to put together a conspiracy between Manafort and Gates. And if you asked me a week ago what a Manafort indictment would look like, I would tell you that it would be full of very narrow charges. We saw those narrow charges as well. We saw, for example, failure to disclose. We saw these foreign bank accounts, for example. You know, those are very easy charges, relatively speaking, for a prosecutor to choose, to prove, because either you've made a disclosure or not, or either you have a foreign bank account or you don't. But the conspiracy charge is wide-ranging, and it has some really explosive allegations about Manafort's wealth, his lavish spending. There are some charges here that are very narrow, like failing to disclose that you're a foreign agent or failing to report certain foreign bank accounts. Those are fairly easy for a prosecutor to prove. Either you made a disclosure or not. Either you had a foreign bank account or you didn't. And presumably Mueller has the goods as to those counts. So it puts you in a very challenging position as a defense attorney, because I don't know where you go in defending those. If there was not the prospect of a pardon, I would be counseling Mr. Manafort and Mr. Gates to consider cooperating with Mueller at the first opportunity.
It strikes me that had a special counsel Mueller never been appointed because of suspicions that the Trump campaign had links, do you think that this all would have come out? I mean, we have learned from this indictment that they had been investigating Manafort for some time. If special counsel Mueller had not been appointed, how else would this have come out?
Well, there were existing FBI investigations. We are aware of that. Mm-hmm. So I believe that Mr. Manafort would have been charged no matter what. But I think the breadth of the information that has been obtained by Mr. Mueller is striking. And that's particularly the case when we look at the charge that was released today against Mr. Papadopoulos. Because there we have, emails suggesting a desire to connect with the Russian government and get benefits from the Russian government and use their assistance against Hillary Clinton. There were some aggressive tactics that were used there that caused Mr. Papadopoulos to try to hide evidence from the FBI, to lie to the FBI. And without Mr. Mueller, they may not have obtained that evidence or that cooperation.
What do you believe is going to come out of Papadopoulos' cooperation now with Mueller upon entering this guilty plea?
Well, the sky is the limit, because now you have an insider who was part of the campaign and can tell Mueller and his team, and also tell a jury at a trial, his inside knowledge of what was happening. He can explain what emails mean. He can explain the context of what was happening. So, if I was advising the president, what I would tell him is that he should assume that everything that Mr. Papadopoulos has ever known is now in the brain of Robert Mueller and his team, and that is potentially a dangerous thing. It could potentially cause other people to have pressure put on them and for them to flip. And when I was a prosecutor, we would talk about kind of flipping up the chain, and that is what you're trying to do as a prosecutor. Start lower on the chain and then flip your way to the top.